is more than just the head of the Roman Catholic Church. He's a global figure whose influence extends far beyond religion as the spiritual leader of over 1 billion Catholics worldwide. The Pope plays a central role in shaping moral, social, and political conversations on the world stage. Today on Lead Story, we explore the significance of the papacy, its impact on global affairs, and what the role means in today's ever-evolving times. Welcome and thank you for joining us. You're watching Lead Story. I'm Nika Lewis. On Easter Monday, the world was shaken by the unexpected news of Pope Francis's passing. Known to many as the world's Pope, the People's Pope, his death came less than 24 hours after he greeted thousands of worshippers in St. Peter's Square, and that was on Easter Sunday. But who exactly was Pope Francis? Here's a brief look into his life and legacy.
The Pope, spiritual leader to more than 1.2 billion Catholics worldwide, has died from a stroke that led to a coma and irreversible heart failure at the age of 88. This prompted an outpouring of grief and reflection across the globe. Born in Argentina in 1936, Jorge Mario Bergoglio rose from humble beginnings to lead the Roman Catholic Church through a period of profound transformation and challenge. Elected as Pope in 2013, he became a symbol of both continuity and change within the Church. Francis became the 266th Pope, the first from the Americas. His papacy was marked by calls for compassion, dialogue between groups who dared not speak with each other, and global unity. He advocated for the poor and displaced, emphasized the importance of caring for the environment, and pushed for greater transparency within church leadership. At the same time, he faced significant trials, including the handling of sexual abuse scandals, doctrinal disputes, and political pressures from both within and outside the Vatican. Supporters praised his humility and moral clarity, while critics questioned the pace and depth of his beliefs. World leaders, faith groups, and ordinary citizens have expressed condolences and shared tributes. Candlelight vigils have begun outside St. Peter's Basilica, where mourners have gathered to pay their respects. The Vatican has announced that official mourning ceremonies will begin this week, culminating in a funeral in St. Peter's Square on Saturday, April 26. Traditionally, the conclave doesn't start until after 15-day mourning period. Though his seat now sits empty, Pope Francis leaves behind a complex and enduring legacy defined by faith, compassion, and a deep commitment to the global community. We discuss on Lead Story. Angela Melville for Lead Story.
Thanks, Angela. So as you've heard, we are talking about the passing of Pope Francis. And joining me is the Most Reverend Donald Rees, Archbishop Emeritus of Kingston. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here. I often watch Lead Story, and so I'm surprised that I'm not on it. Thank you very much for inviting me.
But we are mournful just as much because we understand you are watching typically and seeing other people engage in these times, but now the church mourns, and so we equally express our sympathies. So Archbishop Rees, firstly, tell me, how did you personally receive the news of the Pope's passing, and what was your immediate reaction?
Well, to be honest with you, I was praying every day that he would make a miraculous recovery. But being a man of faith myself, I said, Lord, your will be done. If you want to take him, but he's been a good man, a good benefit to the church and to the world. And so I was praying both ways. If the Lord will take him, fine, and let him have a wonderful reunion with his maker. or if you let him stay a little longer, for him to continue ministering to the church, even though he was not that well.
So one of the things that I've come to understand is that many people would not fully grasp his impact. Can you explain what this impact he had was like on the Catholic Church and its followers?
Well, first of all, we must realize that he's the first Pope from Latin America, from the Western Hemisphere, as a matter of fact. And therefore, he brings with him his culture, his outlook on life, and therefore his spontaneity, his love, and his warmth, which many people don't connect ordinarily with a Pope who seems to be far off, kind of a distant person. So he was really someone who was quite different from many others who went before him. Not that the others were not good, but in their own way and their own culture as well. I met him myself back in 2007 when I was privileged to be at the Salem meeting, conference of bishops with the Caribbean and Latin America, where we talked about the issues of our world today and how the faith impacted those instances or those issues, and how the issues also impacted the faith. And I was very impressed with the way that he was such a calming element in the discussion that we had in Aparecida in Brazil in 2007. And it is that document that came out of that conference that I think was the launching pad for him in his ascendancy to the papacy in 2013. Because he was the one who drew the draft together with other churchmen to sum up the deliberation that we had, all of us, clergy, religious, and lay people in Aparecida, Brazil. And in that document, you see the call for another church, a church that would not another church, but a church that would really be have a willing ear to listen to what people have to say, a church that would be attentive to the needs of our people. That's why I could say that the church must become a hospital where the sick and those who need help will be cared for. And that came out of that Aparecida document, which was really a turning point in our church, in the Catholic Church.
Absolutely. And you mentioning the conference there in 2007, I think you said, that conference,
yes,
he was the first to do something like that, I'm understanding.
No, he was chosen by his fellow bishops to lead the committee to sum up all the deliberation that we had on the floor coming from lay people, religious, clergy, priests, and bishops. Now, he was the one coordinating that committee, and therefore his signature is in that Aparecida document, which really calls for a new look at how we approach ministry, how we allow people to express themselves, which led ultimately to what we call a synodality of the church, where lay people, clergy, and bishops would listen to one another, and through them, the Holy Spirit would be moving them in the direction that the Holy Spirit wants the church to go. So it began in that wonderful experience in 2007, and then when in 2013, he had the opportunity of putting into effect that wonderful document with all its lovely insight into how we should do church in the modern age.
Archbishop Reese, we're up on a quick break, but stay with us. We'll be right back. We'll talk vision and so much more right after these.
In a world where innovation meets tradition, agriculture is evolving like never before. From the latest sustainable farming technologies to age-old practices passed down through generation, agriculture is
precious to me.
I love the animals. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. I love working.
Join us right here on CVM TV every Sunday during news at 7 as we explore the people, the science, and the breakthroughs that are shaping the way we grow, eat, and live You don't want to miss it. This is Farming Forward.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central. As of Tuesday, April 15, Fan Central will be moving to 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Lead Story. We're talking about the passing of the late Pope Francis. He was dubbed the People's Pope, and we are discussing this matter with our own Archbishop Emeritus, Donald Rees. Welcome back to Lead Story, Archbishop. We're back from the break. So was there a particular teaching or encyclical or action from Pope Francis that stood out to you during his time as pontiff?
Well, first of all, his coat of arms is very interesting. Miserando adque eligendo. Having mercy, he called me, which really gives us an insight into the orientation of this pontiff. Mercy was at the heart of his calling, and he knew that God called him to express that mercy. And it is this mercy that was expressed in his caring for the poor, how he would be talking about the refugee. They are human beings who must be respected because of their humanity, not because of where they're from, but because of being God's creature made by God. And so that is was very expressive there, when he even brought to the Vatican around 12 refugees to live there at the expense of the Vatican. And many people don't realize that. But it's not just he's talking the talk, but he's also walking the talk. And he did that to show the possibility of rich nations being able to extend a helping hand to those who are in need. That's very important, I think, showing mercy. He also was one who lived up to his name. He took the name of Francis of Assisi, that wonderful 13th century saint who is beloved by many people, who love nature. And because of that, Pope Francis himself did an encyclical on nature, Laudato Si, to praise God for all of nature, all of creation. And it shows there that we must be good husbands, good caretakers of the earth that God has given to us to care for it, because it's a Mother Earth. So he had that insight into God's wonderful mercy being shown forth in creation as well as in redemption. Something that we must remember. Not only redemption, but in creation, God shows his mercy and his love. And he was very much involved in that kind of expression. He also kissed the feet of prisoners during the Good Friday, Good Holy Thursday rather, liturgy. Ordinarily, the pontiff would kiss well-manicured feet for the liturgy, but not him. He went to the prison and he kissed the feet, washed further and kissed the feet of the 12 prisoners there. Showing again, and not only Christian prisoners, but those who were either non-believers or Muslim, it didn't matter. They were just people who needed to be cared for. And that's the kind of man that he was, sent by God. Sent by God. And I think we must remember that he was not just chosen by human beings, but I believe he was sent by God for a purpose in this age of ours where people are so inward looking, where they're constantly thinking about self, about power, and about the economy, about wealth. Rather, he expressed an image of God in himself, which is outgoing. God is always outgoing, and therefore all of us Christians should be really outgoing thinking about other people. And that was a very important mark he left for the church. Another mark he left for the church is for us to be listening to one another. Around 4 years ago, he started synodality. Synodality means coming together, people coming together. Traditionally, you'll have the cardinals and the bishop giving directives. Now he's turning the table. Let us listen now to lay people, women and men, listen to priests and religious, as well as bishops, to hear what the Spirit may be saying through them in order for us to build a church that is more relevant and more attentive to the needs of our people. And that synodality has left its mark now on the church, and it's ongoing all the time. So we thank God for that wonderful insight that he had.
Certainly.
And another thing is humility. I don't know if many realize that all the popes have been buried in St. Peter's Basilica.
Yes.
But he is asked to be buried in St. Mary Major, another departure from the usual. A simple place, simpler than St. Peter's Basilica. And that shows the kind of man that he was. Very humble man, thinking about other people, not thinking about himself.
Yes.
And I remember, if I may go back in time, when I was acting bishop then, at one of our liminal visits to the Pope, all the bishops from the Caribbean would be with him. And we raised many questions with him. He's very jovial, very down to earth, not a high horse, as it were, but really down to earth and communicating with us as fellow bishops. And I remember raising with him a very tricky question. I said, Your Holiness, have you ever thought about our bringing into the Western Church what is already in the Eastern Catholic Church, the possibility of optional celibacy for the clergy? In other words, for clergy, priests who are married, and yet they're still priests.
Yes.
You have that in the Eastern Catholic Church. And so I raised that question with him, and he gave me a very quizzical look. But he did not dismiss me.
I'm going to ask
we've got
you, Archbishop, to please forgive me, but we're up on a break, and we'll be right back to pick up that conversation with the Archbishop Emeritus of Kingston, Donald Rees, and the late Pope. We'll be right back on Lead Story.
Let's take a walk down memory lane.
Here's a chance.
We'll relive one of the proudest moments in Jamaica's sporting history as Jamaica seeks to get back to football's pinnacle. What are some of the lessons they can learn from the 1998 team? We sit down with former Reggae Boys coach Rene Simons on this special edition of Fan Central. Hear about his book, The Impossible Dream.
This is not a book about me. We have to remember is Captain Horace Burrell.
Some gems from his time at the helm, plus his advice for the current group of players. That's Fan Central, starting at 9 p.m.
Every dream conquered is another dream game. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction, 'cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music you can play, and the people that must say we are my show tonight. Oh, what a feeling! Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't put it down. Shine your lights
Welcome back. You're watching Lead Story. We're talking about Pope Francis, his legacy, and what's next for the Roman Catholic Church. But my guest is the Most Reverend Donald Rees, Archbishop Emeritus of Kingston, and he was telling us just before the break about a conversation he had with the late Pope some time ago. Archbishop Rees, do you remember where you were going? You were at the point of asking about the Eastern Church.
Yes. Well, I first to say that he was very down to earth when he met with our bishops from the Caribbean, myself included, several years ago. And very down to earth and very accommodating, very jovial, a bit mischievous sometimes too. And I raised a question with him, a very thorny question, if he had ever thought about reversing the celibacy law for priests to get, not to get married. And so I raised it with him, the example of the Eastern Catholic Church, where priests have the option before ordination to either marry or not marry. And he gave me a quizzical look, and he said, well, you know, we've got to get the consensus of the entire church because it's such a thorny issue, and we've got to find out where all others are in terms of culture. And so he was not dismissive, he's just cautious as any pope would be in this thorny issue. So we thank God for his openness.
Understood. And that's critical, because I'm certain many members of the church would want to hear his position on that. So there you have it, some clarity there. But what is the process now for electing a new pope? I know it's really early, but what's the process and what should Catholics expect in the coming days?
Well, actually, you've got 9 days of official mourning after the funeral. And the burial will be between the 4th and 6th day after death. And officially, the conclave, that means coming together, the cardinals under the age of 80 will get together to go into conclave to really be praying and reflecting and thinking about the best person that they need now at this time in the church's history to lead the Catholic Church. And so the conclave begins 15 to 20 days after the sede vacante, when the see has been made vacant. And cardinals vote in secret session. After each session, the ballots are burnt in a stove, and if it's consensus is had, then it will be white smoke. No consensus, it will be black smoke. A certain chemical will be put on the burning of the ballot. And by the way, the ring has been smashed, that it can't be used by anybody else. And his apartment has been sealed off. And as I mentioned before, the funeral will be at St. Peter's Basilica, but the burial will be at St. Mary Major, departing from the usual way of burying the Pope. That just shows the simplicity of the man. To the very, very end, very, very simple, down to earth. And that's what we need. We need that both in our churches and in our governments. Simplicity and humility, because we're all human beings and we all need one another. And that is his mission to us. We are in need of everyone. Each one is important in our church, in our community, in our society. Each one is important. And no one should be manipulated, but each one must be listened to. That's where the synodality came in there with his introducing that notion of listening to one another. When we listen to one another, because God speaks through each one differently, we may have therefore a potpourri of God's design for us if we listen to one another. But usually we don't listen to one another. We are always ready to hit down whatever argument another person has. But he was not like that. He listened to us. Whatever we had to say, he listened keenly. As it was at the Paracida in 2007, so it was during his pontificate. His pontificate is one of humility, simplicity, and listening to one another. We thank God for him. God has chosen him for a reason. And that reason is to show us that we're going the wrong way when we become very uppity on a high horse, and we feel that because we have power now, we can dominate other people. But rather, we have power must be used in order to help one another come to that consensus of what God wants of us in this life and in the next.
Well, thank you so much, Archbishop Emeritus Donald Rees. And that's all the time we have actually this evening. But if you stay tuned, the news is next, followed by Lead Story Prime with George Davis at 8 p.m. Thank you so much again. And we express our sympathies and condolences to those who mourn with the papacy.
Let's take a walk down memory lane.
Here's a chance.
We'll relive one of the proudest moments in Jamaica's sporting history as Jamaica seeks to get back to football's pinnacle. What are some of the lessons they can learn from the 1998 team? We sit down with former Reggae Boys coach Rene Simons on this special edition of Fan Central. Hear about his book, The Impossible Dream.
This is not a book about me. We have to remember is Captain Horace Burrell.
Some gems from his time at the helm, plus his advice for the current group of players. That's Fan Central, starting at 9 p.m.
CVM TV and live Jamaica Premier League action on a Monday night. A match made in heaven. We call it Monday Match Night. Catch all the hard-pounding JPL Monday night action from now until the end of the season on CVM TV's Monday Match Night. Matchday Mondays at 7:45 to 5 p.m. with rebroadcast Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Nothing else can quite match up. Monday Match Night, powered by Sunshine Snacks and ABC Electrical.
Sports should be fun. Sports should be interesting. Sports should be entertaining. Sports should be riveting. This is CVM Sports. I'm Jordan Freight.
I love waking up every day in this country. This is where I was born and raised. I have such a passion for my country, and for me this is home. In Jamaica, a lot of people, they look at just like beach, sea, sand, but our mountains are something to behold. It's majestic up there, and it's a different type of peace. It's a different type of lifestyle completely. I could mention many different places that are amazing, but the one thing I do love about Jamaica as well is that you can find that relaxation, you can find that chill in your backyard. Apart from it being an incredibly beautiful country, an incredibly beautiful island, we have a wonderful, wonderful culture, wonderful, vibrant, colorful people. There is definitely a realness to Jamaica. There's definitely something that no matter what keeps you in touch with reality here. Why come to Jamaica? It all comes back down to Jamaica as a whole. The food, the music, the culture, the people, the climate. Come out and meet us, come out and experience what Jamaica has to offer.
From politics to global events, from social issues to breaking news, Lead Story Prime dives deeper